Here's the thing nobody tells you about raising a kid alone. You keep score without meaning to. Not out of bitterness, just because somebody has to remember who showed up. For 26 years, I was the only name on that ledger for my son, Ethan. Every school play, every ER visit, every 2 a.m. fever. I never asked for credit. I just assumed, one day, he'd remember who was standing next to him when it mattered. I was wrong about that. Not about him loving me, about what he was willing to say out loud to the right people to make himself look better. It cost me nothing to help him. It cost me everything to hear what he'd been telling his fiancée's family about how he got here. Thursday, June 11th, 6:47 p.m. My phone rang while I was hosing mud off my boots in the driveway of a job site in Wheaton, Illinois. My son's name on the screen, 6 days before the biggest exam of his life. I picked up already knowing something was wrong. A father always does. Welcome to Modern Dad Echoes. Get comfortable, this one's going to take you somewhere. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Hit like, make sure you're subscribed. My name's Henrik Wilson, 58 years old. I run a small general contracting outfit outside Chicago, Briggs & Sons, even though it's just been me and a crew of 4 for the last decade. On Sundays, I restore old radios in my garage. Don't ask me why. My late wife used to say it was the only thing that made me sit still. I raised Ethan mostly on my own after his mother passed when he was 9. I worked doubles. I learned to braid nothing, but I learned to make a mean grilled cheese and how to fake calm during a fever spike. I used to believe that if I just kept showing up, kept my mouth shut, and never made him feel like a burden, that would be enough. I thought keeping the peace was the same as having peace. I found out this year those aren't the same thing at all. Dad. His voice was doing that thing where it cracks trying to stay level. Dad, I need you to call me back the second you get this. I called back standing in the driveway, boots half off, one sock wet from the hose. Behind me, the sky was doing that orange-gray Illinois thing it does before a storm. What's wrong? My laptop's gone. Someone broke into my car outside the library. Backpack, laptop, 4 months of outline notes, all of it. Bar exams in 6 days, Dad. 6 days. I felt my stomach drop the way it used to when he was small, and I heard him fall down the stairs before I saw it happen. Okay, where are you right now? Parking garage on Halsted. Cops are here. I don't even have money for a new laptop right now. I'm 3 weeks behind on rent as it is. I put everything into the bar prep course. How much for a laptop that'll run your software tonight? A pause. 1,100 maybe. But Dad, it's not just the laptop, it's the outlines, I'll figure out the outlines. Text me the address of the Best Buy closest to you. He went quiet for a second. You don't have to do this. I'm already in the truck. I drove 90 minutes through the start of a thunderstorm, wipers on high, radio off, running numbers in my head. 1,100 for the machine. Whatever it cost to expedite a hard drive of his cloud backups if they existed. Whatever it cost to keep him fed and steady for 6 days, so his brain worked right on test day. I found him sitting on the concrete curb of the parking garage, hood up, rain coming sideways, looking about 9 years old again. Hey, I put a hand on his shoulder. We'll fix this. He looked up at me, and for 1 second before anything else happened, he looked at me like I was the only person on earth he trusted. I want you to remember that look. It matters later. We got him a laptop. We got him fed. Around midnight, sitting in his cramped studio apartment surrounded by pizza boxes and legal pads, I called his brother, my older son, Marcus, a commercial real estate broker in Naperville, because Ethan mentioned Marcus had an old external drive with some backed-up files from when they'd shared a computer in college. Marcus picked up on the 4th ring, restaurant noise behind him, glasses clinking. Hey Dad, kind of in the middle of something. I need the external drive, Marcus. Ethan's laptop got stolen. He's got the bar in 6 days. Some of his old notes might be on that drive from your shared account. There was a pause I didn't like the sound of. Tonight, Dad, I'm at Priya's parents' engagement dinner. Her dad's a federal judge. I can't just walk out of this. I'm not asking you to walk out. I'm asking for a drive sitting in a drawer. Look, I'll swing it by this weekend, okay? I really can't right now, this dinner matters. Marcus, your brother is sitting on his floor at midnight trying to rebuild 4 months of work. His voice went flat, almost bored. He'll figure it out. He always does. I've got a reputation to think about here, Dad. I didn't yell. I didn't even respond right away. I just stood in Ethan's tiny kitchen, holding the phone a little away from my ear, and felt something settle in my chest, cold and quiet, like a door closing somewhere down a long hallway. Understood, I said and hung up. I want you to hold onto that line. He'll figure it out. He always does. We'll come back to it. I texted my neighbor, Ray Odom, a retired IT guy who'd fixed my router more times than I could count. It was 12:20 in the morning. Ray, sorry to bother you this late. My son's laptop got stolen, bar exam in 6 days. Any chance you know a fast way to recover cloud backups from a school account? He called me back in 90 seconds. Send me his student email and the model of the old laptop. I'll have something for you by 7. Ray, it's almost 1 in the morning. Walter, that's what people do for each other. Go make sure that boy eats something and gets 4 hours of sleep. I've got the tech side. By 7 the next morning, Ray had recovered 80% of Ethan's outlines from an auto-sync folder nobody remembered existed. He refused gas money. He refused a check. He said, "Buy me a beer when this is all over," and hung up. I want you to remember Ray too. He shows up again. 3 days later, I sat across from a loan officer named Diane Kowalski at First Prairie Bank, a woman with reading glasses on a beaded chain, and a folder 6 inches thick, the original financing on Ethan's law school tuition. "Mr. Briggs, just to confirm for our records," she said, sliding a printout across the desk. "You're listed as co-signer on the Federal Plus loan, origination amount $94,000, and you've also been the sole payer on the private supplemental loan of $31,500 since disbursement in 2021. Is that still accurate?" "That's accurate. And the monthly auto draft from your checking account, that's been continuous for how long?" 31 months straight. She nodded, typing. "I ask because we occasionally get requests to update authorized parties or add a second name to correspondence. I want to make sure everything on file reflects who's actually been paying." I hadn't planned to ask for this. I'd only come in to see about refinancing my own truck loan and mentioned Ethan's tuition in passing. But something made me ask Diane to print the full payment history. Every single automatic withdrawal, every late fee I'd absorbed, every dollar, going back to his first semester. She handed me the folder. "You'd be surprised how many parents never ask for this. Most people don't realize how much they've actually put in until they see it laid out." I sat in my truck in the bank parking lot for a long time with that folder on the passenger seat, just looking at the numbers. 3 years, every single payment. My name and only my name on every line. That night I called my brother-in-law, Gene, a retired judge who'd walked me through Ethan's custody paperwork 20 years ago. I told him about the loan folder. I told him about Marcus and the dinner. I told him, finally, something Ethan had said in passing on day 2 of this whole mess, something about how his fiancée's parents thought he'd put himself through school working nights, and how he hadn't corrected them. Gene was quiet on the line for a moment. "Walter Thomas Briggs," he said, using my full name the way he used to in the courtroom, "you've never once made that boy feel like he owed you anything. That's admirable. But there's a difference between not asking for credit and letting someone rewrite the story entirely." I didn't sleep much that night. Around 2 a.m., I sat at my kitchen table with the loan folder open in front of me and made a decision, calm and plain, the way you decide to fix a leaking pipe before it ruins the floor. I wasn't going to yell at anybody. I wasn't going to cancel the engagement dinner his fiancée's family had planned for that Saturday. I was going to go. I was going to sit quietly through it. And if the story being told about who built this life for Ethan Briggs was wrong, I was going to correct the record once, calmly, with paper in hand. Every time he needed me and I showed up, and never once asked to be seen doing it, that was the ledger. Every dollar, every drive, every 2 a.m. phone call. Not to punish him, just so the truth existed somewhere besides my own chest. If you're enjoying this one so far, this is exactly the kind of story this channel was built for. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss what happened Saturday night. I didn't confront anyone yet. I gathered. I called Diane back and requested certified copies of the full payment history, the kind with a bank seal, the kind that can't be argued with. I asked Ray if he still had the metadata on the recovered files, timestamps proving I'd paid for the exact laptop, and cloud backup service Ethan used to build his outlines in the first place. He sent it over within the hour, no questions asked, just a text. Hope it goes the way it needs to. I drove out to see my father-in-law, Harold, 81 years old, still sharp as a tack, sitting on his porch with a glass of iced tea. I laid it all out: the stolen laptop, Marcus's dinner excuse, the story Ethan apparently hadn't corrected. Harold listened to the whole thing without interrupting. When I finished, he just looked at me for a second. "What do you need?" 4 words. That was Harold's whole style. Never 6 when 4 would do. "I need to know if I'm about to make a mistake going to that dinner Saturday with this folder." He shook his head slowly. "You're not making a mistake showing people the truth calmly. You'd be making a mistake if you went in there angry. Don't be angry, Walter. Be accurate." I spent the next 2 days being accurate. I organized the loan documents by date. I printed the recovered file metadata. I found 3 years of text messages where Ethan had thanked me quietly, privately, never publicly, for keeping him afloat. I wasn't building a weapon. I was building a record. The Hartwells' engagement dinner was set for Saturday, June 20th, at their home in Winnetka, 4 days before Ethan's bar exam. Sophia's parents, Richard and Elaine Hartwell, were hosting what Ethan called a small gathering to celebrate, with roughly 20 guests, including Marcus, who'd apparently found time for this dinner even though he hadn't found time for the drive. The clock wasn't just ticking toward Saturday. It was ticking toward Monday morning, when Ethan would walk into a testing center running on whatever piece or lack of it this weekend left him with. The Hartwell house sat behind a circular driveway lined with hydrangeas, warm light spilling out of every window. I arrived at 6:58 p.m., 2 minutes early, wearing the one blazer I own, the loan folder tucked under my arm in a plain manila envelope. Elaine Hartwell greeted me at the door with the kind of smile people give when they're not quite sure who you are. "You must be Ethan's father. We've heard so much about how hard he worked to get here." "Have you?" I said, and let it sit. Inside, the dining room held 20 people around a long table dressed in white linen. Marcus was already seated near the head of the table, laughing at something Richard Hartwell had said. Ethan sat beside Sophia, looking better than he had in a week, steadier, more like himself. I found my seat near the middle, envelope resting on my lap. Dinner moved through its courses. Richard raised a glass around 7:40 and made a toast about Ethan's self-made drive, about how a man who built his own path through law school working nights was exactly the kind of son-in-law he'd hoped for. I watched Ethan's face when that line landed. He didn't correct it. He smiled and nodded, and something in my chest went very still. When the room settled after the toast, I stood up. Not loud, not fast. "I'd like to say something if that's all right." Richard gestured, gracious. "Of course, Walter." I set the manila envelope on the white tablecloth in front of me. I didn't open it yet. "Richard said something a minute ago. I want to talk about that. Ethan built his own path through school. I think that story matters to this family, so I want to make sure it's accurate before you build a wedding on top of it." The room got quieter. Sophia's eyes moved to Ethan, then to me. I opened the envelope and laid the certified bank statement on the table, page by page, 31 months of automatic withdrawals in black and white. "This is the payment history on my son's law school loans. 94,000 co-signed. 31,000 more paid entirely out of my account every single month for going on 3 years. I laid the second document beside it, Ray's file metadata. 6 days before his exam this month, his laptop was stolen out of his car. I drove 90 minutes in a storm to replace it that same night, with the notes he'd need to pass rebuilt by 7 the next morning by a neighbor who didn't charge me a dime. I looked at Marcus. His smile had gone somewhere else entirely. I called Marcus that night to ask for an old backup drive sitting in a junk drawer. He told me he had a reputation to think about at a dinner, and that his brother would, quote, figure it out. He always does. Marcus's jaw tightened. Elaine glanced at him, confused, recalculating something behind her eyes. I turned to Ethan last. My voice didn't rise. I never once asked you to say my name out loud, son. I never needed the credit. But I need you to understand I sat in this room and let a man toast you as self-made while I had the receipts in my lap. That's not pride. That's erasing someone who never once let you fall. Ethan's face moved through it in stages, the easy confidence of a man being celebrated, sliding into confusion, then recognition, then something that looked like real shame settling into his shoulders. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Sophia's hand found his under the table, but her eyes were on the documents, reading every line. Dad, Ethan finally said, voice thin, I didn't mean. I know you didn't mean to hurt me, I said, sitting back down, folding my hands. I just needed the truth on the table before Monday morning. That's all. The dinner didn't end in shouting. It ended quietly, the way these things usually do once the truth is finally sitting in the open where everyone can see it. Richard Hartwell was the one who broke the silence, clearing his throat and saying simply, Thank you for telling us the truth, Walter. That means more to this family than any toast I could give. Elaine reached over and refilled my water glass herself, a small gesture, but I understood it for what it was. Marcus left before dessert. He texted me 2 days later, a short message, no apology attached, just, didn't realize you'd bring all that up at dinner. I didn't respond. Some ledgers closed themselves. Ethan drove to my place the next morning before his final study session. He didn't bring an apology dressed up in excuses. He just sat at my kitchen table and said, I let people believe a story that wasn't true because it made me sound stronger than I felt. I'm sorry, Dad. I should have said your name 100 times before now, not 0. I didn't need a speech. I just poured him a cup of coffee, the same way I had 1,000 mornings before an exam or a game or a hard day, and set it in front of him. Go pass your test, I said. That's the only thing that matters this week. He passed. Sophia called me herself with the news before Ethan even reached his phone, and something in the way she said, Walter, he passed, told me she'd understood the whole story better than her parents had. Ray came by that weekend, and I bought him that beer. I've learned this year that showing up quietly for 30 years doesn't mean the story tells itself. Sometimes you have to set the ledger on the table once calmly, so the people you love build their future on the truth instead of a shortcut. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Let me know where you're watching from. I'll see you on the next one.